See, that day was Ekadashi. So he was fasting. So when he left, he went back to Vaikuntha. So that shows the importance of Ekadashi, that if you just follow the Ekadashi, so Prabhupada made a little adjustment. He said, the best is to do the whole day Ekadashi, no water, do the whole day without eating. But if you can't do that, then you do half day fast. If you can't do that, at least don't eat grains. Avoid grains. And this way, when we get the mercy of Krishna, when we get purity. So today, we're reading from chapter 7, text 15 of Bhagavad Gita. Purport's quite long, so I may not go through the whole purport. But I heard a Prabhupada lecture, and I'll just repeat the lecture, because it covers a lot of points in Prabhupada's lecture. So, okay. Namam duskrindita murdha prapadyante naradhama maya apita jnana asuram bhavam asitaha. You want to repeat after me, or shall I just go through it? Okay. Namam duskrindita murdha prapadyante naradhama maya apita jnana asuram bhavam asitaha. Namam duskrantina mudha papadyante naradhama maya apita jnana asuram bhavam asitaha. Namam duskrantina mudha papadyante naradhama maya apita jnana asuram bhavam asitaha. So word for word, na, not, mam, unto me, duskritina, miscreants, mudha, foolish, papadyante, surrender, naradhama, lowest of mankind, mayaya, by the illusory energy, aprita, stolen, jnana, whose knowledge, asuram, demoniac, bhavan, nature, asitaha, accepted. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lost among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, who are partake of the ancient nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So it's a quite long purport. But I'll touch on the purport. But I heard a Prabhupada lecture, so I'll just summarize it through the lecture. And I'll give some points from the purport also. Om Agyanti Mandasya Gana Gana Salakaya Chakshu Miritame Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhistam Stapidame Nabhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dudati Sampadantikam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachayani Vishesh Sunivadi Pascharachayana. So, Okay, I'll touch on a little bit on the purport, then I'll go through the lecture. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that simply by surrendering oneself onto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality, Krishna, one can surmount the stringent laws of material nature. At this point, a question arises. How is it that educated philosophers, scientists, businessmen, and administrators, and all leaders of ordinary men do not surrender to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the all-pervading personality of Godhead? Mukti, or in liberation from the laws of material nature, is sought by the leaders of mankind in different ways, with great plans and perseverance for great many years and paths. But if that liberation is possible by simply surrendering onto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then why don't these intelligent and hard-working leaders adopt this simple method? So, there are 4 classes of men who don't surrender to Krishna. And that's given in this verse, in the translation. So in the purport, Prabhupada expands on that. So, most of those who work, okay, let's see. Number 1, the Mudas are those who are grossly foolish, like hard-working beasts of burden. They want to enjoy the fruits of their labor by themselves, so do not want to part with them for the Supreme. The typical example of the beast of burden is the ass. This humble beast is made to work very hard by his master. The ass does not really know for whom he works so hard day and night. He remains satisfied by filling his stomach with a bundle of grass, sleeping for a while under the fear of being beaten by his master, and satisfying his sex appetite at the risk of being repeatedly kicked by the opposite party. The ass sings poetry and philosophy sometimes, but this braying sound only disturbs others. This is the position of the foolish fruity workers who does not know for whom he should work. He does not know that karma action is meant for yajna, sacrifice. That's number 1. And number 2, yeah. So in his lecture, Prabhupada, he goes into 7:16. So he explains about 4 kinds of people who do surrender to Krishna. And he explains out of the 4, the one who is in knowledge is the best, because he's coming with proper understanding of why he should surrender to Krishna. So he wants to build a relationship with Krishna. Generally, in Nectar Devotion, it explained that when a person goes through difficulty and if he's not pious, he becomes agnostic. When a pious person goes through difficulty, he'll turn to God, he'll turn to Krishna for shelter. And the example of those who don't surrender is, Srila Prabhupada gives an example. In the Second World War, the women in Germany, they prayed to God that, please bring our husbands back. And when the husbands didn't come back, they all became atheists. So that's an example. Also, there was Giriraj Swami was explaining, went to the program in Bhaktivedanta, he was explaining how the former Prime Minister of India, Dr. Radha Krishna, he wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and he didn't explain Krishna as a person. In the famous verse 934, Man Madamad Bhaktamad Namaskuru Mame Satyam. In that famous verse 934, Krishna says, always become my devotee, offer obeisance to me, think on me, and serve me. So in that verse, he explained like Krishna's within. You meditate on Krishna within, unknown within. So Prabhupada was in Chennai at that time when Dr. Radha Krishna was there. And apparently his body became paralyzed. So he couldn't connect to Prabhupada. Prabhupada went to see him, but he couldn't connect to Prabhupada. But Prabhupada did comment, he said that because he made offenses to Krishna, Krishna took away his speaking ability, took his abilities away. But Prabhupada did made another comment that because he was a gentleman, so Krishna punished him like that to reform him for his good. So it seems like even these non-devotees, they have abilities, but they misuse it for their own purposes, for sense gratification. So then, and the reason for that is because they're denying to surrender to Krishna and his representatives. It says a person influenced by the mode of ignorance considers an ordinary person to be a great person, and he considers a great person to be an ordinary person. So of those affected by the three modes of nature, they can't acknowledge in terms of who is the spiritual master, who is Krishna's representative. They cannot acknowledge it. Because the whole thing is to achieve some material gain, they get covered by illusion. And the other thing is because they're going by people who are affected by four defects: tendency to cheat, make mistakes, being illusion, imperfect senses. So because they're associating with these kind of people, then they get affected by the energy. So in this way, they get covered by Maya's influence. So even though some of them may have some knowledge of scripture, but they can't properly understand what scriptures are saying because they're affected by the modes. So in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, at the end, Prabhupada comments in his purport saying that we have to avoid people who are into self-aggrandizement. They're into their own prestige. We have to avoid these kind of people. Because we have to have faith that Krishna is protecting us. Ultimately, Krishna is protecting everybody. Without his mercy, no one can function. But those who misuse their freedom, they're under punishment. They go under punishment. And Prabhupada also says how one has to always keep in touch with devotees. Devotees are like helping us to connect to Krishna. So if one goes back to Krishna, it's not like one will be by himself with Krishna. Krishna is with his devotees. One cannot separate Krishna from his devotees. So in a temple, this is like a training ground here to help us enter the spiritual world. So how we relate to devotees here will help us to enter that spiritual world. So, interesting thing I read, Prabhupada comments, the difference between a normal devotee and a spiritual master is, Prabhupada comments in his calendar quotes, he says that a normal devotee may be doing his personal austerities to make advancement and get purified. But a spiritual master, he's helping others connect to Krishna. He's on a higher platform. And Bhaktivedanta Thakur explains further detail about this understanding. He says, the spiritual master also has his spiritual form. He's there with Krishna. But he manifests his material body in this world to help the conditioned souls connect to Krishna. So in this way, we can see how the spiritual master's position is very high position in terms of, because he's very dear to Krishna. And if we follow his instructions, then by his mercy, our connection to Krishna will become very strong. The only difference is, for the devotees, because they're connecting to the parampara, their connection is for the eternal benefit. Whereas these four classes of people who are mentioned here, so Prabhupada says, number 2, another class of discreant or miscreant is called the Nara Dhamma, or the laws to mankind. Nara means human being, and Dhamma, the laws of mankind. Nara means the human being, and Adhamma means the lowest. Out of the 8,400,000 species of living beings, there are 400,000 human species. Out of these, there are numberless low forms of human life and are mostly uncivilized. The civilized human beings are those who have regular principles of social, political, and religious life. Those who are socially and politically developed, but who have no religious principles, must be considered Naradhamma, or no is religion without God religion. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this one, on the second one, that these people had culture behind them, and they had some understanding of Krishna, but they gave up that culture. They gave it up. In this way, they also become not, they lose their purity. So we can see that Prabhupada comments in one of his lectures on the Bhagavad Gita. He says, how is it that India was cultured, it was spiritual, everything was... How is it that India separated from Pakistan came in? So Prabhupada comments that people had this desire to become westernized. They had that kind of desire. Some desire was there. So Krishna fulfilled it to show them that this is not the way you do things. Also I was reading this book on the end of modern civilization. So in there it explained how in India, because they have this new thing with the crop, it's not done with cows and bulls, but it's a crop they have to buy. And if the rain doesn't properly come and like that, it doesn't fructify. And the farmers go out of a big loss. And when they go out of a big loss like that, then many of them commit suicide. So that shows how, because people are not... Prabhupada says in India, people know about Krishna. They know about Krishna from birth. Even the atheists know about Krishna. But how much they're willing to surrender to Krishna is the question. So, so we can see how now in India, Krishna consciousness is spreading like big time, like many temples are opening. But unfortunately, the leaders they're restricting, they're trying to restrict the spreading of Krishna consciousness. It's like, example can be given, like in Juhu, they were looking for land near the temple, to have cows. And there's a law in India, the government has a law that in the city area you can't have cows. You can't have cows near the city area. So that's why they stop the devotees from having the land near the temple. So they have the land 4 hours, they have a patch of land with cows 4 hours from the temple now. So we can see how those who don't follow the line of disciplic succession and they go by their own views about what people who have 4 defects, what they say, what everything leads to. That it comes to the point where they defy the laws of God and they put man-made laws in, and it creates difficulty for everybody. So so with this kind of situation coming in, we can see how because the whole purpose of the material world is to allow people to go back to Godhead. So when these kind of leaders come in where they cause disturbances for the progression of helping humanity to advance on the spiritual paths, then Prabhupada says, then there'll be wars, pestilence and famine which will come in to get rid of the unwanted progeny. So the purpose of the material world can be fulfilled for people to go back to Godhead. So we can see like with these classes of people in the power, they cause a lot of disturbance. So next class is the next class of description is called Maya Apita Jnana, or those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of the illusory material energy. They are mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, literary scientists, but the illusory energy misguides them and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. So even in Prabhupada's time, there were like 700 commentaries of Bhagavad Gita. And when Prabhupada he had the commentary of Dr. Radha Krishna at one point and on his shelf, and the devotee had that copy, and Prabhupada said, just start reading it. Prabhupada asked him to read the commentary. So when he got to that point on 934, Prabhupada said, just see, these people are cheaters. They don't accept Krishna as a person. So so in 1969, Prabhupada came to England. So he was trying to educate the leaders in England on the principles of Bhagavad Gita, proper understanding of the Bible also. So he's trying to educate them, but they were chopping and changing. They weren't willing to follow the proper way. And at some point, Prabhupada was going to write a commentary on the Bible. And Prabhupada didn't write a commentary because Prabhupada said people are more advanced now. Bible is very simple. So people require more advanced knowledge. So Prabhupada made a comment, it's better that we stick to our books, quote our books. The other thing is, we have to define who are the leaders. So, so the line of disciplic succession, we see in other religions that line is not coming. There's not much line is there. Someone asked a question to Bhaktivedanta Thakur how is it possible to follow the Bible even though it's written 2,000 years back? And he gave the example. He said, if the Ganges is coming from the Himalayas and you're in Haridwar or somewhere very far from that place, by the time the Ganges comes down, it may get contaminated with other things within it. So the point was made that you have to have someone living guide to help you on the path through the line of disciplic succession. So that's the difference between our teachings and even modern education. The teachings are based on academic education. And Prabhupada said that kind of education leads to bewilderment, because it doesn't give the factual stories which are real. It just gives stories which happened in the past which exist no longer anymore. But Prabhupada said if people read Mahabharata, then this will satisfy all their emotions. So the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the Mahabharata. So Prabhupada quotes Yamunacharya Bandhu of South India said, "O my Lord, you are unknowable to persons involved with atheistic principles, despite your uncommon qualities, features and activities, despite your personalities being conformed by all the revealed scriptures in the quality of goodness, despite your being acknowledged by the famous authorities renowned for their depth of knowledge in the transcendental science situated in godly qualities." So, the challenge in spiritual life is to come to mode of goodness. By coming to mode of goodness, then we can understand things properly. Then you can come to pure goodness. But the difficulty in the material world is people are trying to enjoy the eternal happiness. They're trying to get the eternal happiness, but they're trying to enjoy it through matter. So by doing that, one becomes frustrated. The eternal happiness doesn't come. The eternal happiness really comes when you connect to Krishna and his devotees. So Lord Chaitanya, he said, everything in the material world is temporary, but there's two things which are eternal: the Vaishnavas and the holy name. So the human form of life, we have this higher understanding on how we can approach Krishna. The animals, they can't approach that because they go by instinct. The human form of life, we have this high intelligence, how we can approach Krishna. And the only thing we have to be very, very careful of is that we have to have good association. Srila Prabhupada, he made a point, I think Mother Vishaka and Jaduraj Prabhu, they were in Jew at that time. And when the temple was being constructed, There were snakes, mosquitoes, mice, very difficult time when the construction was going on. So they were living in some life member's house, and at some point they came to see Prabhupada in the morning program, and they asked Prabhupada, is it okay to live like this? And Prabhupada said, better you live with the devotees because they're trying to serve Krishna. Any house you live in, after 3 days you feel the karma, you feel the energy. So this is why spiritual life is like a razor's edge. One has to be very careful how he goes in his practice. And so Bhaktivedanta Thakur gives a good example in terms of understanding how the importance of following in our strictness in practicing Krishna consciousness. So there's an interesting quote here. He says, is it necessary to worship Hari after taking birth in the human body? By good fortune and the Lord's mercy, we have been given a human birth. The human form of life is extremely rare. There is no guarantee that in our next life we will again become humans. By some misfortune, we might become a ghost, witch, hobgoblin, animal, bird, or insect. It is not possible to worship Hari in those species. Therefore, we should not use whatever time we have left in our present body for pointless activities. Life is temporary. Still, human life can award spiritual salvation. Therefore, as long as we are alive, we should quickly earn our spiritual perfection. Human beings proudly consider themselves Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, Brahmacharis, Grihasas, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasis. Those who are intelligent, however, should not claim these false identities. We are simply Lord's servants. We are not products of this world. To consider the body, the self, is an illusion. Sriman Mahaprabhu said, Jivare Swabhava Krishna Das Abhiman Debe Atma Jnana Achedite Se Jnana. The original nature of the living entity is to consider himself the eternal servant of Krishna. But under the influence of Maya, he thinks himself as to be the body, and thus his original consciousness is covered. Chaitanya Chaitanya Madhya 24:210:201. Hari's holy name does not appear on the tongues of persons puffed up with false ego, material proprietorship. We are eternally conditioned souls. Due to our forgetfulness of Krishna, we have fallen into illusion. Now we have no alternative but to give up our false ego and take complete shelter at the lotus feet of Guru and Krishna. Elephants think themselves elephants, dogs, but humans should not think like that, like this. Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai. Rather, they should be proud of their real identity. Sriman Mahaprabhu says, Jivare Sarupai Krishna Nityadas. It is the living entity's constitutional duty to be an eternal servant of Krishna. Lord Hari is situated in every atom. He attracts fools and learned alike. Only those who have no desire for material enjoyment, for becoming the master, no desire to command respect, so as sadhus are qualified to hear his instructions. Those who are attached to something so insignificant as their own pride, however, will not hear the Lord's call. Such persons should know that death is inevitable. Adya vidabha santa mrityu parve duva. Either today or in 100 years, every living entity must die. We are cognizant, but despite our cognizance, we did not approach the Lord's devotees and hear the instruction attentively, ruination is inevitable. There is no chance to worship Hari in any form of life other than the human form. Therefore, we should engage in Hari Bhajan until we die, giving up all our other engagements. That's the only way we can attain the ultimate goal of life. Everyone in this world is ready to ruin us. In this land of non-friendship, our so-called relatives are inferior for our devotion service. We therefore have no alternative but to take shelter of Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are our actual relatives. We do not need to do anything for anyone, just serve the Lord's devotees along with others. Let everyone serve the Lord with his her knowledge, intelligence, academic qualifications, physical strength and expertise. The more we delay doing so, the more trouble we will find ourselves in. People who follow non-Vaishnava religious principles cannot attain the auspiciousness. All auspiciousness is held in the hand of those who take shelter at the lotus feet of Vaishnavas. The non-Vaishnavas are decorated only with a garland of birth and death. Persons attached to Hari Bhajan no longer enter the wombs of mothers. What to speak of Vaishnavas? Even those who have opportunity to see lotus feet of extraordinary Vaishnava will not take birth again. Any comments or questions? The thing is, important to have the guidance of an advanced devotee. This is the main thing. So important to have that guidance of those who are advanced. And then the mercy will come. Like in the time of Srila Prabhupada, he had many servants, but many of them left because they were too familiar. So, main thing is to take proper guidance of advanced devotees and read Prabhupada's books, have a proper service attitude, and then things will become easy. By the mercy of devotees, everything becomes easy. We have to get a higher taste. This is the thing. We have to cultivate the higher taste. And by having the higher taste, and everything else balances from that. Krishna consciousness is science. So in the beginning, the association of devotees is there. First is faith, then the association of devotees. And then one goes to the ananta nivritti. All unwanted things come out. Doubts are cleared up. At some point, one becomes very serious. One takes a spiritual master. A spiritual master is considered, he's the best friend, best relative, and best well-wisher. Knowing our nature, he will put us in touch with in a way, he'll guide us in a way that we become strong spiritually. And we can advance to the point of firm faith. So when the stage of firm faith comes, then advancement becomes very fast. So there was an example of Kadama Kanan Maharaj, how I heard a story how there was one English lady, she was coming regularly to serve the deities, Radha Gopinath deities in Radhadesh. And she had family relations and like this. And Maharaj came to her and he told her, I'm ready. He asked the authorities first, he said, I'm ready to help her if you give me permission. So they gave the permission. So Maharaj went to her and told her that if you're ready to follow the 16 rounds and the 4 regular principles, then I'm ready to help you. So she agreed. So Maharaj, he said, I'll come back in 1 year's time to see how you're doing. So Maharaj came back in 1 year's time, and he was playing harmonium in front of her, chanting Hare Krishna. And she looked at Maharaj, saying, Maharaj, I was so involved in my family life. I tried to help them into Krishna consciousness, but they could not connect. But I can see that Krishna consciousness is the highest thing. And then she smiled, then she left her body. Because Maharaj could see that she was serious in her practice. But she just needed to be helped by a spiritual master. She needed to have that connection. But she admitted it herself. She said, I tried to help others who are like my family, but I could see they weren't connecting. But now I've connected with you, I can see that Krishna consciousness is very special. And then Maharaj was chanting Hare Krishna in front of the harmonium, singing, and then she left her body. So we can see from this example that if someone is sincere, then Krishna will guide them. And Prabhupada comments on that in the chapter 10, text 10. In the Prabhupada, he explains that point, that even though one may not be that intelligent, and he may not have a connection with his spiritual masters, but if he's very sincere, then Krishna will guide him back to Godhead. So in this lady's examples, this is the point made, that although she didn't go through the procedure and like we have to go through for initiation, but Maharaj could see she was sincere and she was following what Prabhupada was saying in his Prabhupada in 10:10. So she just needed that connection, and that's it. So but if one is following sincerely and is practicing everything what Prabhupada is saying, then why delay? Better to go through the procedure, and then you let the authorities decide. You'll know from your experience how to connect to Krishna. Spiritual master will manifest, and then Krishna's connection will come. It's just we have to be serious, that's it. For some it takes a long time. But if you can follow it, just follow what devotees are telling you, then it becomes very quick. Bhaktivedanta Thakur explains it's the material attachments we maintain that stops us going forward. We maintain our material attachments. So that blocks our vision. So we have to follow what's good for our Krishna consciousness and reject what's not good for our Krishna consciousness. And then the mercy will come. Like in this lady's case, the mercy came. Because she was sincerely serving the temple, bringing donations, praying to Radha Gopinath. And then some other Krishna arranged Maharaj to come and gave her the mercy. Because Prabhupada gives an example, he says, like the sun is going everywhere, the mercy is going everywhere. The sun is not discriminating who's pious or who's not pious. The sunshine goes on everyone. But then there are certain people who are blind. They cannot see the sunshine. But that doesn't mean the sun is not shining on them. So we have to be open for the mercy. Pray and be open for the mercy. The mercy is there. Krishna is there to guide you. He will. We have to take shelter of advanced devotees. They will guide us. Mother Sadhana Sandini, right? Sadhana from Iran. She does the Bhagavatam table. So Giriraj Swami disciple. Sadhana Sandini, right? Sadhanandini, yeah. She told an interesting story. She took shelter of Mother Kalanganath. And she wanted Mother Kalanganath to give her initiation. But Mother Kalanganath wouldn't do that. Then she waited some time, and Sandini, she asked Mother Kalanganath on Lord Nityananda's appearance day that you're not giving me initiation, so guide me to someone who will give me initiation. Mother Kalanganath said, Giriraj Swami. And she didn't know Giriraj Swami. But Mother Kalanganath put her in touch with Giriraj Swami. So like this is an example to show that if we take shelter of advanced devotees, they will guide us. So the English saying is there, God helps those who help themselves. I saw the opposite one time as well. Like one time there was one Mataji, she was helping in a gift shop. And she was doing a nice service. But then she had a mentor who was guiding her. A mentor told, now you're ready for initiation. But then she hesitated. She didn't want to take. So the mentor made further investigation. Then so you're not ready yet. Because you have to have strong faith in Krishna. Faith in Krishna and Guru has to be there. Follow the instructions. Because the devotees are guiding us to enter the spiritual world. So even by practicing here, you're not part of the material world. Like that. Any other questions, comments? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Bhagavan ki Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki Srila Prabhupada ki Kiva Jayo Jayo Gaura Chande Arati Koshoba Jayo Jaya Gaura Chande Arati Koshoba Vitata Vani Jagamana Lobha Jana Vitata Vani Jagamana Lobha Dakshinenitai Chan Bamigadadara Da